The plasma bolt burned through the shuttle's hull 3 seconds before Marcus Chen could warn anyone. Smoke filled the cabin as the escort vessel spiraled toward the barren moon below, warning lights painting everything red. He moved without thinking, muscle memory from 12 years as a freelance rescue pilot taking over. The Vexari princess sat frozen in her seat, crystalline skin shimmering with terror as her guards lay unconscious against the bulkheads. "We're going down," Marcus said, yanking her harness free. "Move." She stared at him with those strange triple irised eyes, her translator device, crackling with damaged circuits. No time to explain. He grabbed her arm, surprised by how light she felt despite standing nearly 7 feet tall, and hauled her toward the emergency pod. The shuttle's reactor was already screaming its death song. 40 seconds, maybe less. The pod door jammed. Of course it did. Marcus slammed his boot against the release panel once, twice, then ripped the manual override cover off and yanked the lever. The door hissed open. He shoved the princess inside, her elegant robes catching on the threshold. She said something in her musical language, reaching back toward the main cabin where her guards still lay trapped. "They're gone," Marcus said, not unkindly. "You're not. Get in." He punched the launch sequence as he dove in after her, the pod ejecting just as the shuttle's reactor core breached. The explosion lit up the moon's dark side like a newborn star, and the shockwave sent the pod tumbling end over end through the thin atmosphere. Marcus wrapped himself around the princess as they crashed through rock formations and ice fields, the pod's shields failing one by one. When they finally stopped moving, silence pressed in like a physical weight. The princess was breathing, her chest rising and falling in that strange tripartite rhythm of her species. Marcus checked himself for injuries. Bruised ribs, maybe a cracked wrist, nothing critical. The pod's emergency beacon blinked weakly in the corner. If it was working, rescue would come. If not, they had maybe 72 hours of oxygen and no way off this rock. He looked at the princess properly for the first time. Young, he realized, barely past adolescence by Vexari standards if the briefings he'd half-read were accurate. Her crystalline skin had darkened to a deep purple, which his limited knowledge suggested meant fear or stress. Blood, luminescent and silver, seeped from a cut on her forehead. "You're hurt," he said, reaching for the medical kit. She flinched away, then seemed to realize he meant no harm. Up close, he could see the intricate patterns in her skin, like frost on a window. He cleaned the wound carefully, applying a universal coagulant that probably wouldn't work on her alien biology. To his surprise, it did. She spoke again, her voice like wind chimes. The translator device on her collar sparked and died. "Great," Marcus muttered. "Okay. You stay put." The pod's systems were barely functional. The distress beacon was transmitting, but on such low power it might take days for anyone to detect it. The recyclers were damaged, cutting their oxygen supply in half. Food synthesizer was completely dead. And the temperature was already dropping as the moon's brief day gave way to a night that would last 70 hours. Marcus ran the numbers in his head. They'd freeze before they suffocated, unless he could jury-rig the heating system using the pod's emergency battery, which would drain it in maybe 40 hours, leaving them in darkness for the rest. Assuming anyone even found them, the princess watched him work with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Her people were supposed to be cold, diplomatic, untouchable. The Vexari sovereignty controlled half the known galaxy through careful negotiation and overwhelming technological superiority. They didn't show emotion. They didn't show weakness. But she was terrified. He could see it in the way her hands trembled, the way her skin kept shifting between purple and a sickly gray. "Hey," he said softly. "We'll be okay. Someone will come." She tilted her head, not understanding, but seeming to take comfort from his tone. Marcus stripped wires from the damaged navigation panel and began rerouting power to the heating system. His hands moved automatically while his mind raced through scenarios. The pirates who'd attacked the shuttle would be long gone, but they'd be scanning for survivors. If they found the pod first, they'd either kill them for loose ends or ransom the princess. Neither option ended well for Marcus. He needed to boost the beacon's signal without draining the battery completely. Impossible with the current setup, but maybe if he cannibalized the pod's shield generator, already useless now that they were grounded. Hours passed. The princess slept fitfully, curled in the corner. Marcus worked until his vision blurred, until his damaged wrist screamed with every movement. Finally, as the last light faded outside, he got the heating system stable and the beacon transmitting at triple strength. Then he allowed himself to close his eyes just for a moment and dreamed of nothing at all. He woke to the sound of engines overhead. Not rescue. Wrong configuration, wrong sound. The pirates had found them first. Marcus checked the charge on his sidearm. Enough for maybe 6 shots. Against a full raiding crew, it might as well be empty. The princess was awake, watching him with those impossible eyes. She'd figured it out, too. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, knowing she couldn't understand. "I tried." The pod door exploded inward, and everything went white with pain. When Marcus regained consciousness, he was on a ship he didn't recognize. His wrists were bound behind his back, and his head felt like someone had used it for target practice. He sat in what looked like a cargo hold, surrounded by crates marked with symbols he didn't recognize. The princess knelt 10 feet away, surrounded by 5 heavily armed raiders. A Kelvorian, all scales and attitude, pressed a plasma rifle against her neck. Another, human or near enough, held a recording device. "Smile for your mother, princess," the human said. "She's going to pay a fortune to get you back in one piece. Maybe we'll even let her keep all your pieces intact, if she pays enough." The Vexari princess remained perfectly still, her skin now a deep dark blue. Not fear anymore. Something else. The Kelvorian laughed and said something crude in his own language. His companions joined in. Marcus tested his bonds. Synth fiber, professionally tied. No give at all. His gun was gone, along with everything else useful. He was nobody, nothing, a freelance pilot who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. They'd probably space him once the ransom was paid, loose end tied up neat and clean, but the princess turned her head slightly, enough to meet his eyes. And in that moment, Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. Recognition. Not of him, but of what he'd done. She'd seen him work through the night, had watched him burn his hands raw, rerouting power systems, had felt him shield her body with his own during the crash, had witnessed a stranger, a human, a member of a species her people barely acknowledged, choose to save her when he could have taken the pod for himself. The Vexari were supposed to be cold. They were supposed to operate on pure logic, on calculated political necessity. But her eyes weren't cold now. They burned with something ancient and absolute, something that transcended species and culture. The human raider noticed her stare and backhanded her casually across the face. Her head snapped to the side, silver blood spattering the deck. Marcus surged forward without thinking. Bonds and guns be damned, and made it exactly 2 steps before a rifle butt caught him in the stomach. He went down hard, gasping. "Stay down, hero," the human said. "You already did your part. Kept the merchandise intact. Now shut up and let the adults work." Through the pain, Marcus saw the princess touch her bleeding lip with one crystalline finger. She studied the silver blood for a long moment. Then she spoke. Not in Vexari, not through a translator. In perfect, unaccented English. "You should have killed us both when you had the chance." "That right? And why's that, your highness?" "Because I remember faces," she said quietly. "And I never forget debts." The raider captain arrived an hour later. A scarred Threxian with cybernetic eyes and a reputation for brutality. He looked at Marcus like something he'd scrape off his boot. "The pilot stays alive until after the ransom," he growled. "Might need him to verify the princess's condition. After that, he's spare parts system." They dragged Marcus to a different cell, smaller and darker. Through a viewport, he could see stars he didn't recognize. They'd already jumped to hyperspace. No one was tracking them. No rescue was coming. He sat in the darkness and wondered if freezing to death in the pod would have been kinder. 3 days passed. They fed him enough to keep him alive, nothing more. He heard screaming once from somewhere deep in the ship. Not the princess, someone else. Then silence. On the 4th day, alarms began shrieking through the entire vessel. The ship shuddered, throwing Marcus against the wall. Weapon fire. Close. Very close. The cell door exploded open, and the human raider from before stood there, plasma rifle raised and eyes wide with something between rage and terror. What did you do?" he screamed at Marcus. "What the hell did you tell her people?" "I didn't tell them anything," Marcus said truthfully. "I don't even know where we are." "How did an entire Vexari battle fleet find us in deep space? How did they board us in under 4 minutes? How are my men dying before they can even pull their weapons?" Marcus had no answer. The raider's head jerked to the side, as if hearing something. And his eyes went glassy and he collapsed, a single crystalline spike protruding from the base of his skull. Behind him stood a Vexari warrior in full combat armor, 7.5 feet of elegant death.
The warrior looked at Marcus, then spoke into a comm device.
"Human pilot located. Unharmed. More warriors poured through the corridor, moving with inhuman grace and precision. Marcus heard more screaming, cut short. The ship shuddered again as something critical failed. The warrior gestured for Marcus to follow. "Come. The Princess Queen requires your presence." "Princess Queen?" Marcus managed. "You did not know?" The warrior's skin flickered with what might have been amusement. "She who you saved. Third in line to the sovereignty throne. Fourth daughter of the Crystal Empress, Princess Heir Vexilthara of the First Ascension." They led him through corridors painted with silver blood. Bodies lay everywhere, raiders cut down with surgical precision. No one had been taken alive. No one had been given the chance to surrender. The ship's bridge was carnage. The raider captain hung from the ceiling by his own entrails, still technically alive, his cybernetic eyes watching his own slow death. Marcus looked away. Princess Vexilthara stood at the command console, her elegant robes replaced by simple combat gear, her crystalline skin now a deep, brilliant red that Marcus had never seen before. Power radiated from her like heat from a star. She turned to face him, and Marcus understood with sudden, terrible clarity that he'd saved something far more dangerous than he'd imagined. "Marcus Chen," she said in perfect English. "You saved my life and asked for nothing in return. You shielded me with your body. You worked through pain to ensure my survival. You chose my life over your own safety. I was just doing what anyone would—" No, her voice cut through his words like a blade. "What you did is not normal for your species. I have studied humans. I know your capacity for self-interest, for calculation. You had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Yet you chose mercy." She stepped closer. Behind her, the raider captain made a wet, gurgling sound. "My people do not forget debts, Marcus Chen. We do not believe in mercy or kindness as you understand them. We believe in balance, in equity, in perfect reciprocity." She gestured to the dying captain. "They took me. They hurt me. They threatened to dismember me for profit. This is balance." Marcus swallowed hard. "And me? You saved me without asking for reward, without demanding payment, without negotiating terms." Her skin pulsed, red deepening to crimson. "This is unprecedented in our culture. We do not understand altruism. We understand transaction, obligation, honor debt." It was warm, almost burning. "I am Princess Heir Vexilthara. By the laws of my people, I owe you a life debt. And unlike your species, Marcus Chen, we always pay our debts in full." The dying captain made one final sound and went still. "Take him to medical," Vexilthara commanded her warriors. "Heal every injury, no matter how small. Feed him, clothe him, give him quarters befitting an honor guard, and prepare the writ of testimony. The Empress will want to hear of this." "That's not necessary," Marcus said. "I don't want—" "What you want is irrelevant." Her eyes met his, and for a moment he saw the terrified girl from the escape pod. Then she was gone, replaced by something ancient and implacable. "You saved a princess heir of the Vexari sovereignty. You have no choice in what comes next. The debt must be balanced. It is law. It is inevitable. It is absolute." She turned back to the viewport where a massive Vexari dreadnought hung in space like a silver moon. "These raiders believed they could profit from my suffering. They learned otherwise. You believed nothing, asked for nothing, expected nothing. You will learn what it means when the Vexari repay in kind." Marcus was led away by warriors who treated him with careful reverence and tried not to think about the bodies in the corridor, the captain dying slowly for hours, the methodical brutality with which an entire pirate crew had been annihilated. He'd saved one life without asking for payment. And, somehow, he suspected, that simple act of mercy would change everything. The Vexari flagship was like nothing Marcus had ever seen. Corridors of living crystal that pulsed with inner light, gravity that adjusted to each individual's comfort, air that tasted of something between ozone and spring rain. The medical bay healed his injuries in minutes, using technology that seemed more like magic. His cracked wrist fused back together without a scar. The bruises faded as he watched. A steward, smaller than the warriors but no less graceful, brought him food. Real food, not synthesized protein. Delicacies from a dozen worlds prepared to human specifications. Clothing that adjusted to fit perfectly, made from fabric that felt like silk and wore like armor. "This is too much," Marcus told the steward. "I was just doing my job." The steward's skin flickered through a pattern Marcus couldn't interpret. "You saved the Princess Heir." "There is no such thing as too much. There is only balance." They left him in quarters larger than his entire previous apartment, with a viewport showing the vast emptiness of space. 3 other Vexari warships had joined the flagship now, forming a convoy, going somewhere. He tried to sleep and couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the raider captain hanging from the ceiling, dying by degrees. Saw the bodies in the corridor, saw Vexalthara's skin burning crimson, with something that went beyond anger into a realm humans had no words for.
The door chimed.
Before Marcus could respond, Vexalthara entered. She moved differently here, in her own domain, with a confidence that bordered on supernatural. Her skin had returned to its natural crystalline clarity, though patterns of red still flickered beneath the surface. "You cannot sleep," she observed. "Not used to accommodations this nice," Marcus said, which was partly true. "You lie poorly." She crossed to the viewport and stood silhouetted against the stars. "You are troubled by what you witnessed, by the fate of the raiders, by the violence." Marcus considered denying it, then gave up. They were scum. Slavers and killers. But what happened to the captain was proportional. Vexalthara's voice held no doubt, no regret. "He intended to dismember me slowly, to send pieces to my mother until she paid. I simply returned that intention in kind."
"We are not cruel, Marcus Chen. We are exact."
"It looked like cruelty. That is a flaw in your perception, not in our justice." She turned to face him. "Your species believes in mercy, in forgiveness, in allowing debts to go unpaid and crimes to find insufficient punishment. We find this incomprehensible. How can there be order without perfect balance?" Marcus didn't have an answer for that. "In 3 days we reach the sovereignty capital. You will be presented to the Crystal Empress, my mother. She will want to understand what motivated your actions. She will want to determine appropriate recompense." Vexalthara's skin pulsed once, bright red. "I warn you now, do not refuse what is offered. To reject a life debt payment is to declare the debt unpayable. To declare it unpayable is to declare the life saved worthless. To declare a princess heir worthless is to invite annihilation. So I don't have a choice. You chose mercy. Now you must accept its consequences." She moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it matters, Marcus Chen, I am grateful. We are not supposed to feel gratitude. We are supposed to understand only obligation and balance, but I find myself grateful nonetheless. Perhaps your mercy is infectious." She left him alone with his thoughts and the endless stars. The next 3 days passed in a strange haze. Marcus was given access to areas of the ship usually restricted to high-ranking officers. He watched Vexari warriors train in combat techniques that seemed to bend physics. He sat in on a strategy session where fleet commanders planned operations of mathematical precision that accounted for variables Marcus couldn't even identify. He ate meals with junior officers who treated him with cautious respect and asked endless questions about human culture, motivation, psychology. "Why did you save her?" one asked, a young warrior whose skin patterns suggested fresh combat experience. "You gained nothing. You risked everything." "This is illogical." "It felt like the right thing to do," Marcus said. "But what is right? How do you measure it without calculating gain versus loss?" Marcus tried to explain morality, ethics, the concept of inherent value in life. The Vexari listened with fascination and incomprehension as if he were describing a color they couldn't perceive. On the 3rd day, the convoy dropped from hyperspace and the sovereignty capital filled the viewport. Not a planet, not a station, something beyond either, a construct of living crystal the size of a solar system, glowing with power that registered on sensors as both technology and biology. "The Eternal Throne," Vexalthara said, appearing at his shoulder. She wore formal robes now, layers of crystalline fabric that caught light and threw it back in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Heart of the sovereignty. Home to 10 billion souls. Created by my ancestors, 18,000 years before your species learned to write." Marcus had no words for what he was seeing. They docked at a spire that stretched for miles, and Marcus was led through corridors where the walls themselves seemed alive with memory and purpose. Vexari of every caste and color stopped to stare as he passed. Word had spread, apparently. The human who saved a princess heir, the alien who demonstrated mercy without obligation. The throne room was the size of a cathedral and empty except for 3 figures. 2 were guards, towering warriors in armor that seemed carved from starlight. The third sat on a throne of living crystal that grew from the floor like a tree. The crystal empress was ancient. Marcus could feel it radiating from her like gravity from a black hole. Her skin had deepened to almost black with age, shot through with veins of pure light that pulsed with each breath. She was smaller than her daughter, barely 6 feet tall, but presence made her seem vast. Vexari knelt. The guards indicated Marcus should do the same. He did, his knees hitting the crystal floor with a sound like a bell. "Rise," the Empress said. Her voice was a whisper that filled the entire space. "Marcus Chen, my daughter's savior, the human who asked for nothing and earned everything." Marcus stood on shaking legs. "Your Majesty, I didn't..." "You did not understand the implications. You simply acted according to your nature." The Empress leaned forward slightly. "Tell me true, human. If you had known what would follow, would you still have saved her?" The dying captain. The weight of a debt he never asked for.
The life of a terrified girl in an escape pod.
"Yes," he said. The Empress's skin flickered through a pattern so complex Marcus's eyes couldn't follow it. "Fascinating. You are either the most moral creature I have encountered or the most foolish. Perhaps both." She stood, and the throne seemed to stand with her, crystal reshaping itself. "Marcus Chen, you are owed a debt that cannot be repaid in currency or material goods. My daughter's life is beyond price. Therefore, I offer you 3 choices." The throne room's walls came alive with images. The first showed a ship, sleek and deadly, unlike anything human engineers had produced. First choice, technology. "We will share with you knowledge your species will not discover for 5 centuries. We will make you the wealthiest, most powerful human alive. Nations will bow to you. History will remember your name." The second image showed a planet green and blue and perfect. Second choice, territory. "We will grant you a world in the neutral zone, fully terraformed and rich in resources. You will become a king. Your descendants will rule for generations. Entire civilizations will spring from your bloodline." The third image showed Vexari herself, standing in armor beside a unit of warriors. Third choice, service. "You will join my daughter's honor guard. You will be transformed, enhanced, given lifespan and abilities to match our own. You will stand at her side as she rises to power. You will shape the future of the sovereignty itself." Marcus stared at each image in turn. Wealth. Immortality. Everything a human could possibly want. And if I refuse all 3? Silence fell like a blade. The Empress's skin went dead black. "Then you declare the debt unpayable. You declare my daughter's life without value. You declare war on the sovereignty itself." She leaned close enough that Marcus could see the light pulsing beneath her skin. "Choose carefully, human. Your mercy saved 1 life. Your pride could end billions." She stood perfectly still, her face unreadable, but her skin had gone the pale purple of fear. Not fear for herself. Fear for him. He thought about the escape pod. The cold. The injured girl watching him work through the night. The moment she'd looked at him with recognition and something beyond gratitude. "I don't want power," Marcus said quietly. "I don't want territory. I don't want wealth." The Empress's skin began to glow red. "But I don't want to refuse your debt either. So I'll take the third choice, with 1 modification." "You dare to negotiate?" One of the guards shifted, hand moving toward a weapon. "Not negotiate. Request." Marcus met the Empress's eyes. "I'll join Vexari's guard. I'll serve the sovereignty. I'll accept the enhancements, the lifespan, all of it. But not because of obligation or debt. Because I choose to. Because she chose to remember mercy even when her culture doesn't recognize it. Because she spoke in my language when she didn't have to. Because I think maybe our species need to learn from each other." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then her skin flickered through patterns of silver and gold, colors Marcus had never seen a Vexari display. "Impossible," she whispered. "After 18,000 years, an alien teaches us something new." She turned to her daughter. "What say you, Princess Heir? Will you accept this human service freely given?" Vexari's skin blazed crimson, then softened to a warm amber Marcus suspected might be joy. "I will accept. Gladly. Gratefully. Then it is done." The Empress raised one hand, and the throne room filled with light. "Let it be recorded. Marcus Chen, human of Earth, is hereby granted full citizenship in the Vexari sovereignty. He will undergo the rite of transformation. He will serve as first guard to Princess Heir Vexilthara, and the debt incurred by his mercy is balanced by his choice. The light faded. Marcus found himself on his knees again, though he didn't remember falling. Vexilthara helped him up, her crystalline hand warm in his. "You should have taken the wealth," she said softly. "Your life would have been easier." "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But boring." Her skin flickered with that amber color again. "Come, the rite begins at dawn. We have much to prepare. Your human form must be preserved in stasis before enhancement. Your memories must be recorded. Your genetic code must be harmonized with our technology. It will hurt. But you chose this. You chose mercy. You chose service. You chose us." She led him toward a doorway that hadn't existed moments before. Now learn what it means when the Vexari repay in blood. The enhancement took 6 months. They rebuilt him from the cellular level, threading Vexari biotechnology through his human frame. His bones became laced with living crystal. His nervous system learned to process information at speeds that made his old brain seem glacial. His lifespan extended to match theirs, centuries instead of decades. But they kept what made him human, his memories, his empathy, his capacity for mercy that the Vexari found so alien and fascinating. Marcus Chen emerged from the rite of transformation taller, faster, stronger, but still fundamentally himself. The first thing he saw was Vexilthara waiting outside the medical bay, her skin that warm amber color he'd come to associate with her rare smiles. "How do you feel?" she asked. Marcus flexed his new hands, watched crystal patterns pulse beneath skin that looked human but wasn't. Not anymore. Different. Same. Both. "Good." She handed him armor, elegant and deadly. "You are first guard now. You stand at my right hand. Where I go, you follow. What threatens me, you face. And when I rise to become empress, you will help me rule the largest civilization in known space." They walked together through corridors of living crystal, past warriors who saluted and civilians who stared. Word had spread throughout the sovereignty. The human who saved the Princess Heir without asking for payment. The alien who chose service over wealth. The outsider who taught the Vexari that mercy could be its own reward. In the years that followed, Marcus stood at Vexilthara's side through diplomatic negotiations and military campaigns, through political intrigue and attempted coups. He became legend among both species, the bridge between Vexari precision and human compassion. And when Vexilthara finally ascended to the eternal throne, when she became Crystal Empress in her own right, Marcus was there, first guard, trusted advisor. Living reminder that sometimes the greatest debts are the ones we never intended to create. The new Empress's first decree changed sovereignty law forever. Mercy would be recognized as a valid form of payment. Kindness without obligation would be honored as equal to any material debt. The concept of altruism, incomprehensible to Vexari culture for 18,000 years, became enshrined in their highest laws. "You changed us," Vexilthara told Marcus one night, standing together beneath artificial stars. "One act of mercy, and you altered the course of an entire civilization." "I just saved a scared girl in an escape pod," Marcus said. "You saved the future Empress." "You demonstrated that power without compassion is incomplete. You proved that different species can learn from each other rather than simply coexist." Her skin glowed amber, warm and bright. "We repaid your mercy in blood, in transformation, in service. But the true payment was what you taught us, that some debts are measured not in wealth or power, but in changed hearts." Marcus looked out at the eternal throne, at the crystalline megastructure that housed 10 billion souls, at the empire that now valued mercy alongside justice. "Worth it," he said. And the Empress, who had once been a terrified princess in a dying shuttle, who had learned mercy from a human who asked for nothing, smiled with her whole being and agreed.